Hi everyone, today I'm going to show you some different papers that you can use to colour on and also some different colouring techniques, and if you're going to go and buy some pencils or some pens, some ideas of what you might prefer. So I hope you enjoy watching the video. Thank you. Firstly, you're probably wanting to print out your mandala with a printer. If you've got an inkjet printer, that works fine, and if you've got a laserjet printer, that works fine. Just make sure when you're printing it that you're using it to do fit to page. It's actually designed as an A4 sheet, so you shouldn't have any trouble printing it. I've printed this one here on watercolour paper. That's come straight out of this book here, which is just a watercolour paper. This one isn't the best quality watercolour paper, but it works fine. Just when you tear the page out, make sure you cut this edge off, so when you put it through the printer you don't get nasty things through your printer. So that's your watercolour paper. The next one here is a felt tip pen paper, or a premium marker paper. Now that's this one here. There are some cheaper ones on the market as well which work fine, so you don't need to buy this particular brand. I'm just showing you the different ones. This one is terrific if you're using felt markers, and it's also okay for watercolour blending as well. I've also got here vellum, which is really great with felt pens, and a great one if you're going to do things with kids. You buy tracing paper pads, and as you can see, it's see-through. And it's great cut out and put on windows. This one I would just colour with felt tip markers because they're very transparent. And this is just like your normal photocopying paper that you would have at home. So I'm just going to show you 3 different types of paper and the different things that you can do with those papers just to get different results. It's fun to colour mandalas. You can just colour them with any old colouring pencils, but if you want to get to some different results, I want to give you some tips and tricks. Okay. If you're heading out to buy some pencils, can I suggest get watercolour pencils, because you can colour with them without using water, or you can use water, which is really great. So there's lots of different brands. I have a full set of Faber-Castell ones, which are my favourite of all time. So I've got a complete set of those. I think I've got 200 of those. There's also the Montmartre ones. I've also got this box here of Jassart ones. So watercolour pencils are really great. I suggest you buy at least a box of 24 if you're going to buy them. The only reason I suggest that is a lot of people start with 12. Then they get really disappointed and go, oh, I really, really wanted some more colours. And then they go and buy a box of 24. And usually you're doubling up on your colours. You don't, however, have to buy 36. I'm going to show you some colouring techniques to actually help you with not needing that. When you go to the shop, you may also come across these. They're another watercolour pencil, and they're called Inktense. So they come usually in quite small sets. They don't have a huge colour range. If you can get these cheaper on sale somewhere, I do suggest a set of Inktense pencils as well. But again, you don't need any of these to start, just a set of watercolour pencils. That will help you with dry colouring as well as with watercolour colouring. You may also come across these. They're another watercolour pencil, and they're called Inktense. So they come usually in quite small sets. They don't have a huge colour range. If you can get these cheaper on sale somewhere, I do suggest a set of Inktense pencils as well. But again, you don't need any of these to start, just a set of watercolour pencils. That will help you with dry colouring as well as with watercolour colouring. Also tools. I'm going to tell you straight off. You usually get a brush with your watercolour pencils. Throw it away. Go and buy one good brush. These are also very popular. These are like a barrel form of watercolour brush, and you just put water in this barrel and the water comes through into the brush all the time. This works really well. A lot of people really love them. I'm not really a favourite. I don't really like them more than brushes. All you really need is a paper towel and a brush and a small container of water. I have a very flat container of water here. One of the reasons is because you are never going to stand your brush up in the water. Please always make sure that you wipe your brush dry and put the brush down on the bench, because it's really, really not good for your brush to stand it up in water. Pet hate in classes of mine. I've printed this mandala here on watercolor paper, and I just want to show you some of the different techniques. So I'm going to, in this case, use two of my Faber-Castell watercolor pencils in a yellow and a red, because what I want to do is do a blend. So the reason we use watercolor paper is because it has tooth. You'll feel that watercolor paper is not as rough. It's got a nice tooth to it. So when I color, the pencil puts quite a bit of color down. I don't have to be really accurate with my color, because you can see that you can push the color around with your brush. Now, if I wanted to just color in with these pencils, they work perfectly fine. So just color in like that, and that may be all you really want. But if you want to add a bit of depth, a bit of shape to these petals, then you might put a little bit of another color. Now, it's important when you're doing this, and I'll have another video about this, to only do blending with colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. And I'll actually let you know where there's a download for a color wheel for you to print out. So I'm now going to put some water on my brush, tap a little bit onto the paper so it's not too wet. Now, there's two different ways you can do this. A lot of people just do this. Okay, brush it all together. Now that can make it really dirty looking. It looks okay in this case because they're quite bright colors, but sometimes that will end up really dirty looking down the center here. So I'm just going to clean my brush again, wipe it on the paper towel, and this time I'm going to take the yellow, that's maybe a bit too dry, a little bit more water, take the yellow and blend it into the orange. Clean my brush, tap it on the paper towel, and clean it again. And I don't know if you can see that, but this one on this side has much more brightness to it, where we've kind of lost the blending on that side. So that's just an example of how you can blend with watercolor pencils. Of course, if I was to use a color like yellow, and then I put blue on it, I'm going to get what color? Okay, so if I blend this together, in the middle there, I'm going to get a greeny turquoise, and see how lovely that can actually look. So your colouring doesn't need to look flat. You don't have to be an expert. It's all trial and error. What I suggest to you is actually have a piece of watercolor paper next to you. What I often do is just do some little blending tests. So if I use this yellow and this red and this blue, and I blend from the yellow into the blue, what am I going to get? And from the yellow into the red, what am I going to get? Sometimes you can go, see, if I go too far, I'm actually going to lose my yellow. And that's why I say go from the lighter colour into the darker colour. But if I was going to put this particular red next to this particular blue, and a lot of people go, well, that's going to end up purple in the centre, but that's not necessarily the case when it comes to the pencils, because this blue is not, and this red do not work together. So see how you get a muddy looking colour. So do some little bit experiments on extra paper so that you get nice colour blends. Okay, so that's your watercolour pencils. Now, I told you I love the Inktense, and I'm just going to show you why. If I add the slightest bit of Inktense pencil, as their name says, if I put a little bit of Inktense pencil down, hardly needed any colour at all, and then just got my brush can you see how vibrant that becomes? And we're getting a really lovely pink colour in the area where there's no pencil. Now, the important thing when you're using watercolour pencils or watercolour paper, any colour paper, any type of paper, is the best results are with the right paper and also the right mediums. So when you use photocopying paper, I prefer that you just use dry pencils. When you start to use water on watercolour on photocopying paper, it starts to buckle. So people go, oh, I don't like the result, it's buckling, it's not looking nice. That's because the paper is not meant to accept water. Okay, this paper here, it's a watercolour paper, it's for that purpose. So make sure that you experiment with different papers. These are not expensive papers by any means. Now, also you can see now as it dries, it's lightening up a little. So I'm thinking to myself, I really like that to be more vibrant. Nothing is stopping you putting more colour on after it dries. Okay, and even dry colouring over the top of it when it dries. I have seen many people doing this, which I'm actually not going to do, but using the pencil as if you can take the watercolour off there. Please don't do that. That actually destroys your pencil. It can cause mold and can cause cracking in your pencil. These particular ones are quite an expensive set, but even if you're buying a cheaper set, you want them to last. So don't put water on your pencils. If you want to pick up colour from somewhere, you can do this. A little scribble onto that scrap paper, mix it up like paint, and I can now take that colour from that spot and use it. So, you know, there are the different ways to do it rather than ruining your colour. And you can see you get quite a nice blend there. I'm now going to show you the felt pen paper or the marker paper. And this one I'm using markers on. Again, these are more expensive Tombow markers, or Marvy Le Plumes these are, and these are Tombow. You'll find they're quite expensive from craft stores. You can just use your Crayola markers. The great things about kids' Crayola markers is that they're made to last. They're made often to be their lids left off. These markers are great because they have a fine point at one end and a brush marker on the other end. The reason I like these better than Crayolas, I guess, is this lovely brush marker on the end. So when you're colouring with these pens on this paper, you'll see that it just goes down so beautifully because this paper has hardly any tooth. It's got a really smooth sheen surface to it. So I can colour without really getting those nasty felt pen lines that you can get in many other papers. Okay. Of course, when you're colouring in with pens, you've got to take your time because you don't want to go out of the border. Another thing you can do with felt tip pens is add water to them. These are water-based pens, okay? So you can add water and you can blend the colour. This, because it's such a bright colour, is not going to blend very much, but you can see some of the pink is moving in this case. Now again, if I spend too much time rubbing this, I'm going to rub the surface off. So you're better off then putting a little bit of, show you on here, putting a little bit of the felt pen, wrong colour, sorry, a little bit of the felt pen onto a piece of plastic, put the lid on again, take it from there, and you can see you can use it like paint. So your felt tip pens can be used like watercolour paints as well. Okay, and that's a really nice finish. I'm going to show you in some further classes how to do some beautiful colouring and blending with felt tip pens, and also using them as mixed media alongside your watercolour pencils and alongside your other mediums that I'll be showing you. So when we're colouring a mandala, I'm going to also in another video explain to you how we get those really dynamic colours and how do we know what colour to put where. So we'll talk about that next. I hope you have a go of these things, and let me know how you go and ask some questions on the site. Thanks.